All right. Now let's get into another one of these debates that Andrew had. This one is has to do with marriage, and you know what we're just to look into is where this video where Andrew put out that uh, during this debate it spirals out of control. So I'm ready to get into it, check it out, and I'm sure you are too. So let's don't waste any time. Let's jump right into it.
Your whole argument always seems to go back to like it ought to be this way in a perfect world. But the problem with Christianity and the churches in general is they're compromised, right? Like toxic
Some of
feminism
them.
ruin most Western religions today. They're painting rainbows on churches or allowing kids to attend, even in Christian churches. There's been plenty of examples of that. So
Yeah,
there's
but I
no
mean,
there's no real buffer.
secularism's no protection from that. That's the first argument. It's not like you being not a Christian is going to protect
Right.
you
So I mean,
from
you're
having
saying
your. Hang
Christianity
on,
is
hang on, hang on. Let me
slightly
respond.
better, but it still
No, it's
doesn't
not just
resolve the
slightly
issue.
better. It's overwhelmingly better. Descriptively, now it's true. So let's untangle a couple things.
Yeah.
The first thing is, if we're talking about an is versus an ought, I'm not even to what we ought to do. I'm talking about what is descriptively true right this second, not what is future and utopian, right? Coach Greg Adams made this mistake too because he's a moron. But I don't think you seem like a smart guy. I'm talking about what's true now, not what's true in
Yeah. And
300 years. What
what's
is true
true
right
now
now
is
is that
that everybody that gets married as a man faces the wrath of family court and toxic feminism.
no, they don't.
Yes, they do.
No, they don't. They don't
Yes, they
face
do.
it. In fact, in many of
You
these
can be
groups, almost none of them face it.
my friend. I have a gentleman that I spoke to a couple of weeks ago that was in a Christian Orthodox marriage, 8 kids.
Hmm.
The wife and the pastor turned against him, threw him out of the court. He got divorced, raped, alienated from his kids. Would you like me to keep telling you more stories
Do you
about
think,
like
do you,
that?
again, Rich, do you think that because some bad things happen to some people, that that means all people in that group are going to experience those
No, but
bad
what I'm
things?
saying is that there is no consistency with the churches these days. It's not a buffer. It doesn't offer.
So I think I'm kind of confused on where he's coming from here. This I think his name's Rich right here. Andrew is talking about um, divorce and stuff, but this guy just talked about. He started talking about Christian churches, and then he went into. It sounded to me not Christian churches. He talked about the court system failing men, which I would agree to that. But Ranger, but then immediately goes to Christian churches again. Well, there's a significant difference in Christian churches and the court system of the United States in whatever state you're in. I'm confused on where he's going right with this. He's conflating the two. It sounds to me.
A significant enough of a improvement in the outcome that I would say that it justifies taking the risk of living in a way that looks like marriage to the government.
How does, okay, well, let's try this then. If that's the argument, if the argument is any risk is too much risk, then what is the way in proper way in which we raise children in the 21st century? Can you walk me through how a guy who is, I don't know, 23 wants to have kids?
Sure.
Okay. How's he supposed to do that without A, having a bunch of wealth that he's not going to have at 23? That's just not going to happen.
Right.
How does he actually have children and raise them absent
That's
moving
a great
into,
question.
hang on,
And
hang on.
okay, go ahead.
Let me finish the question. Absent risk mitigation. So what I would say is there's no way to have good outcomes for children absent being in a married home in a general sense. There are sometimes where it can work out. Most times it doesn't. The outcomes for the children are bad. Cohabitation outcomes are almost always universally bad.
Mhm.
But risk mitigation, we're talking about through traditional marriages in the church, seem to buffer against this in a significant way. So I'm 23, I want to have kids. How do I do that absent a wife exactly and get good outcomes? Can you tell me that?
No, I
No.
don't have a solution to that for a 23-year-old. But what I can tell you is there's lots of opportunities as a man navigates life, becomes more seasoned, creates some value and renown for himself to structure himself in such a way where he can have children, still parent them, and not invite the government into his life. And that would
Yeah,
not
but that's not going to
involve
be available for the
traditional
majority
type
of men,
of
right?
marriage at 22 or 23. No, you're right.
But that's not going to be available to the majority of men. The vast majority of men, that's going to be unavailable
Yeah,
to.
and that's the shitty thing about the environment that men live in today is that they're forced to deal with the reality of, hey, I'm religious, I'm 20 something odd years old, I want to get a gal and have a family and have a bunch of kids running around, have a good time with them. I get it, children are wonderful, but the chances of them being successful in the outcome that you'd like to predict for them is very, very low. Men are
No,
not
it's very
equipped.
high. That's my
No,
whole
hear me
point.
out. No, hear me out. Men
Go
are not
ahead.
equipped very well to deal with modern women today, and the type of women that are available to men, the inventory that exists in the pool, are of such low quality. It just doesn't make sense to live in a way that looks like marriage to the government. You can love a woman, you can have a relationship with a woman. I just don't recommend that men live in a way that looks like marriage to the government because that's where the potential outcomes can get really problematic. You can still have children with women and raise children, but
How?
you don't want to live in a way that looks like
Yeah,
marriage
how
to
are
the
they
government.
supposed to do that, dude?
There's a few ways. I'm glad you asked that question because there's a few ways to mitigate the risk or at least reduce it somewhat. Um,
I mean, I'm married, been married a long time, and I, I I disagree with his point of view, but I kind of understand where he's coming from. Kind of a little bit. Makes sense. Because you never want the government, period, in your life. I mean, that'd be great. If we didn't have the government all in our life, period, it'd be a phenomenal thing. But when it comes to marriage, it I just don't. It's hard for me to argue not for marriage, me being married so long. Um, but I can say that it doesn't matter if you're married or not. Truth be told, uh, if you're just dating a woman and you have children, and she decides that she no longer wants to deal with you, she's going to use the government, the court system, to come after your ass. You're going to pay regardless. If he's trying to find a way around not paying something to this woman, he's never going to get it because the system's really set up court wise, government, the the whatever the system is set up geared more for women. Let's be honest. But if you're talking about church, that's a total different thing to be talking about. If you're talking about Christianity, I think there's too much conflating of the two here. I just don't understand. I don't know why this is happening.
Canada would be off the table completely because there's no opportunity here to do that. But you could move to a state like Kentucky, for example, or Florida. I can't remember what the other two are, but there's a website called the National Parenting Org, and they produce a report card every year telling you which states are not hostile towards father. Notice I don't say friendly towards fathers, but not hostile towards father, where the outcome is a default 50-50 arrangement.
Yeah, but what
When
about the outcomes for the kids? That's what I'm concerned with.
Yeah, so the outcomes for the kids are obviously better when the parents stay together
Hmm.
and you reduce the risk for the mom to leave dad. And Kentucky successfully did that. They lowered the divorce rate by 20% by assuming default 50-50 custody on divorce. She would have to prove that he's some kind of a degenerate piece of dealer, gangster, or something like this, where it would warrant her getting custody. But if you live in that state now, they're seeing the divorce rate drop by 20%
Well,
because
then you've
women are
created,
incentivized
but
to
then
have
you've
children
created a
as opposed to with the
contradiction.
father.
You've created a contradiction here, Rich, because
Okay,
earlier
good.
when I asked you, I say, Rich, why is it that if you're in a low risk, if you're in a low risk category as a group for getting divorced, shouldn't you do it? And you said, well, any risk is too high. But now you advise that men go to a state where they
Right.
still
You're
run.
asking about how I
Hang
would
on, Rich.
advise
Hang
women
on.
to do that, so I
Let me
answered that
finish, bro.
question.
I just heard you out. The contradiction here is obvious. If I ask you why shouldn't people who are in already mitigated low risk groups for getting divorced shouldn't do it, you say because the risk is high if there's even one divorce. And I go, okay, but what should they do then to raise children? You say, well, they should go to some place where it doesn't assure them not getting divorced.
Well, that's
It
one
only,
perspective.
hang on. It only helps mitigate the risk. And it's like, but that's my argument. My argument is that these groups are already mitigating risk. Why is it that you shouldn't be gravitating towards the groups which mitigate risk when that's your advice to men now?
Great. So what we're saying then is Kentucky mitigates the risks better than Christianity.
No, it doesn't.
No.
No,
the
it
facts,
offers, it assists with a de incentive. But if you were a Christian in Kentucky, then your risk would be mitigated by double.
This is what he's literally. I'm maybe I'm too dumb to follow this. I don't know, but he's trying to compare the court system with Christianity. I don't like he talked about the Kentucky and how they have the 50-50 unless there's some type of crazy shit going on through the court system. What does that have to do with Christianity? How is that better than the Christian? He hasn't even. Maybe I'm coming in the wrong time, but it's not. How is this comparing the two? I don't. There's two different things we're talking about here. We're talking about court systems and Christianity. I don't. Am I missing something?
We're going back to the ought to, in a perfect world for Christians.
No, descriptive is right this second. If it's the case that it's lower than the national average overwhelmingly, which it is, and then you
Mhm.
combine that with disincentives for women from the state, it sounds like it's a very low risk endeavor, right, Rich?
It's a high enough risk that it's not worth any man to live in a way that looks like marriage to the government. I mean, like even
But you
in
just
like
said to
there,
move to a
hear me
place
out
where
for a second, Andrew.
I'm so
You got to
confused
let
by
me
this.
talk sometimes too, okay?
I've been letting you talk.
In heavy like Eastern Orthodox countries like Russia, the narrative is still women get 80% of custody orders, right? This is
So
across the world. This isn't just in North America. This is how we see family courts and religion apply to men and women's lives. And the whole point of a marriage, sorry, the whole point of marriage and children, you would say what? To pass on your name, pass on your DNA, to name your sons, that leave a legacy behind? What would you say it is?
well, it depends on the worldview. From the Christian worldview, we feel that there's a commandment to do so,
Mhm.
to multiply and to get, and for the most part, for most men to get married. Not every man's called to do that, but generally speaking, most of them seem to be. They seem to want to be with a woman. They seem to
I
want to
agree
have
with that.
children with with that woman, and they're commanded to do this. From a secularist perspective, or a non-Christian or a non-religious person, it seems to vary based on things like you mentioned, perhaps legacy, perhaps they have different incentives for why it is that they want to do that. I couldn't begin to tell you all of them because secular marriage to me is bizarre. It makes no sense. I don't know. I don't even understand it. But I do
I
want
mean,
at
marriage
least.
doesn't make much sense in general.
I think marriage does make sense in general.
Not
I
really,
think.
because
Well,
it fails most of the time.
it doesn't fail most of the time. That's a
It
lie.
does.
It doesn't. It
And
doesn't.
when you look at the data around the people that
Show me
live
the
in
data
ways
that
that look
marriage
like
fails most of
marriage,
the time. Let's start with that.
what with what? Sorry.
The data that marriage fails most of the time.
Yeah. So when you look at the data on people that live in a way that looks like marriage, so there was a study done. Aaron and Acevedo covered this. The effects of love on long-term relationships, and they found that less than 13% of people in the study, and I can't remember the count. I think I wrote it down over here. Hold on a second. Um, it was 6,000 something people, 6,070 people over a span of 8.84 years. And again, the title of the study is Does Long-Term Relationship Kill Romantic Love? 12% are in love and 3% are in a state of obsession or bliss. I think that's why most guys would want to get married, is they think that they're going to be in a state of obsession or bliss with their wife in a perpetuity and be granted access to lots of enthusiastic sex whenever they want it. And that's not the reality that most men experience when they get into it. And some of that data supports that. suggesting that most people that are still together over 8.84 years don't even like each other. So you're saying that, yeah, the divorce rate is, I don't know, 40 something percent or whatever it happens to be. Then you got to look at the people that are staying together, out of maybe convenience because they're too cowardly to leave. They're not good enough looking to leave. They might be poor. They might have other anchors sort of tying them down. But there's a lot of people that stay in long term relationships. And
He's just asserting those things that understand the statistics and what they're saying, but he's making up another category that it would be higher if there wasn't cowards or whatever, poor people, that he's saying that it would be higher if it wasn't for those people. He has no evidence for that. He's making that shit up.
don't even like each other. Like the chances of you being in love with your spouse is very low.
So what?
To
Yeah. So what? So the question here that I'm asking you is,
Well, the point that I'm making is
man wants
even
to
those
have
that are
kids.
in long-term relationships, because you're
Yeah,
saying it's worth it,
great. But
that
let's
live in a way
let's
that look like
hang
marriage,
on.
and I'm
Let's
telling you the data suggests that that's not reflective of what
yeah.
people look for.
Here's the problem with the argument where it holds no muster and it doesn't even contend with what I'm asking you. What I'm asking you is, if you want to have kids, you want to have children, and you want good outcomes for the children, what other than marriage, especially from a religious perspective, is going to create better outcomes for the children, Rich? That's the question. Now you keep defaulting to, what about me, the father? What about me,
Yeah, because
this
the
guy?
question
I
is
get, hang on, I get
marriage
that.
worthwhile for men? So I'm talking about men, right? Like this is the angle, this is the prompt.
Yeah, but the thing is like,
I'm always trying to
if,
bring it back to men.
but you see how men want to have kids,
Sure,
and so they want their kids to have good outcomes. And
sure.
so, how are men going to have their kids have good
Well, you can
outcomes
have kids and
absent?
not live in
Hang
a
on,
way that
hang on,
looks
hang
like
on.
marriage to the government.
Yeah, okay, how?
You have kids with a woman, you
Mhm.
don't live together, and you parent them together in separate homes.
That looks the same as divorce. That looks the same as a divorced arrangement to me. How
And
is
that's
that
the
different?
unfortunate, and that's the unfortunate reality of the world that we live in today.
What? So your solution is, if you get so here's your idea.
The
Your
only
idea
difference
is,
is the
if you
man is
get
still the head of the
divorced,
household.
hang on, here's what you just said. If you get divorced,
Hang on,
one of the
but the
am I
biggest
allowed to
difference, Major,
respond
is that
now?
the men are still the head of the household when they run the relationship that way
They're
versus
not the head
divorce.
of the household.
Women
How?
are still, sorry,
How are they the head of the household if you're not even living together? There is no household.
you're paying for everything.
Yeah. So your solution.
It's the same as divorce at this point. This argument he's putting forth right now makes zero sense for what he's saying. Living in two different places, that's divorce. The man having to pay for everything, that's divorce. He's not the head of her household, but make this is where he's lost me already a lot in this. Is he just said that the man would still be the man of the household, but he would not. He may be paying, but that's not the same thing. Money and being the man of the household is two different things.
Is have two separate houses, so you're paying double for two
That's
separate houses, and then split
that's one way to do it. Yeah, that's one way to do it.
parenting
But
time with the woman.
what's that?
Your idea here is pay for two different domiciles and then split parenting time with the woman. Now, if we had a divorced relationship, you would be living in two domiciles and splitting the parent time with the woman. So
Yeah, I don't.
hang on, so if the risk of divorce is, well, you may not be able to see your kids, and you may have to be
Let's
paying
deal with
for
one
your,
thing at
hang
a
on,
time here, because
Rich,
I
let
don't
me
think that
finish.
men are
Are
needed
you
to
gonna
do
let me finish
much
my
of the
point?
parenting when children are small.
Let me finish my
Well,
point.
you're talking about parenting, right?
Yeah,
So
let
I'm
me finish my point
trying to
and then
address that.
respond to it. Then respond to it after I finish it. Your worldview just showed that there's no distinction. If I get a divorce, I have to pay for my wife's new living or ex-wife's new living arrangement in a new domicile through child support, and then I
Got it.
have to take care of the kids. Under your view, you're just saying go ahead and get cut right to the end and go ahead and begin paying for her domicile and support. It's literally,
Okay.
you're just asking men to live like they're divorced.
No, that's not what I'm saying. The
There's no difference.
Yeah, there is a difference because
What?
the court. Well, hear me out. I'll explain it to you.
All right.
The court is running the show when you get divorced. Women run the show when you get divorced. they leverage family law for their benefit. They're getting 80% of the custody orders. Whenever there's child support that's required, it flows from the father to the mother. If there's alimony that's arranged, 97% of the time it goes from the father to the mother. And she controls most of the outcomes in a unilateral fashion when it comes to the family courts. But if you're with a woman and she says, "Hey, I love you," and you say, I love you too," sort of thing, and she says, "Let's have a family. I'd like to have kids," you say, "Fine. But here's my boundary. I can't live in a way that looks like marriage to the government. So I'm going to pay for a house. I'll rent a house. I'll look after you. I'll come and visit you and the kids. But we can't live in a way that looks like marriage to the government.
Now, Rich, what prevents the
We're running
woman,
the show.
since there's children involved, what prevents that woman from going and pursuing child support anyway and then
Exactly.
breaking up with you?
She can, but she doesn't
Yes,
get
she
anything else.
can.
Yeah.
This doesn't mitigate anything.
Yes, it does.
No,
You don't have
what?
to lose half your.
You're already paying for half of their. You're paying for all their.
No, you don't lose half of your assets, Andrew.
Yes, you do. You're
I think
already
no, you
paying
don't.
half your assets so this woman can live
You're,
apart from
you're
you.
not. You're not. You're not living in a way that looks like marriage to the government. You're
So,
not
yeah, but
married. You're not living
if
in a way that looks like marriage.
This really makes no sense. If you do the math, if you got a divorce and they took a certain percentage from you, and that's all you were that you had to pay, you'd come out better than this scenario that he's making. His scenario is you pay for everything. That'd be cheaper to just go through a damn divorce. This doesn't make any sense. This argument is like lacking.
Marriage to the government. You understand the difference, right?
no. And here's why.
For family law to force a man to compel a man to pay alimony, it has to you have to be married, or you have to live in a way that looks like marriage to the government. So if you want to go about it a certain way, we're talking about a strategy here now at this point.
Yeah.
If you want to apply a strategy to the game to sort of circumvent some of the risk profiles, then that's one way to do it. That's just one way to do it. I mean, there's other ways that we can.
Yeah, but
talk
let's
about.
focus on this one real quick
Sure.
because to me it's incoherent. The idea here is the woman can still
It's
pursue.
incoherent because it doesn't align with your worldview with
No, it's
Christianity.
incoherent because when it's applied to what it is that you're trying to avoid, you're just skipping to the thing you were trying to avoid in the first place.
Hmm.
The idea here is that if you get a divorce, you're going to split assets. The idea and be paying towards your ex-wife's new life. That's what you're trying to avoid. Under your view, though, you're just doing the same thing. You're just paying for her
No, you're
assets in
missing
the
the
same.
point.
Hang
No,
on,
you're
in the
missing
same
the point.
exact way, and she can still pursue legal action through the kids. That doesn't stop her from doing that at all.
Yeah.
And you
So
have taken out the risk mitigation now of religion. So there actually seems like there's an incentive for her to do that.
the remedy that she can apply for will be child support, right?
Yeah.
He's exactly right. What he's trying to from trying to follow his argument here. But if she can prove, like, say they're in a relationship like this for 5 years. Okay, let's just say that. Yes, she can go get child support at any time. But if she can prove that he has been supporting her this entire time, she can still get alimony. There's no way around it, guys. I don't understand his I don't think he's a smart guy. I'm sure he's a smart guy, but if he's been supporting her this entire time, paying for her house, paying her bills, paying for her car, everything, I'm sorry. She could still sue him for alimony, and she probably would win in today's society. Just to be honest.
She can't apply for alimony. She can't apply for half.
Yes, she can.
Because they're not living a way that looks like marriage. The state will always make sure the children are looked after. That's what they do. So
there's no avoiding the state.
Well, let's just agree on something. Like, some of the biggest risks for men are what? Child support, alimony, and the loss of half of their assets. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you just eliminate 2 of those risks.
No.
And the only thing that you would have to deal with is child support versus marriage, where she can take half of your alimony and child support.
You hang on. You haven't done that exactly. So No, you haven't eliminated this risk. So here's why you haven't eliminated it. You're still paying out just like you were divorced. You're still paying out just as though you were divorced for this woman to be taking care of your kids for half for assets and you're living apart from her. And what this does is this also creates a massive problem, which is that the outcomes for the children are still not going to be as good as if they were at home with mommy and daddy to get hang on together, because we have all the data in the world to provide for this. That in split households,
How much
the,
how much
the
data do you
negative
have on the model that I just described to you as a solution to
that would be
this
that would
problem?
be your burden, not mine.
Well, it's one version. It's one version that I'm
No, but that would be your burden. You would be you would need to show me the proof that that works better than the model of being heavily religious and in marriage for mitigation. That wouldn't be on me to prove to you. It'd be on you to prove to me.
well, they're not going to study something like that, but I can tell you from evidence that I've seen that it works quite well.
What evidence?
People that I know that do it.
That's anecdotal. That's no place in a debate. You can appeal to
There's not a lot
anecdote.
of people that do this, Andrew. Like you realize this
That's
is
anecdotal.
right, but you understand that men are having to become creative when it comes to the notion of having children without losing their. One of the other things you see guys trying to use to solve this problem is surrogacy, which is another bizarre one, right? Then you don't have the mom involved at all.
Yeah, but that's only going to be available to men who have wealth.
So become wealthy. It's one
Yeah,
of-
well, but that's that. But you see what I'm saying? Like this creates a massive problem. Most men are not going to become wealthy.
No, I
Most
realize it.
people are not
If
going to
you're
become
poor,
wealthy.
if you're not successful, then you have to follow the masses. This is why so many guys get destroyed because the game is rigged against them. The, the population has no real fair way to navigate relationships and children consecutively.
Yeah, but here's the problem that you have here with this analogy. The first is when you appeal to an anecdote, if I were to give you a similar anecdote, oh, I know a lot of guys who do that and it doesn't work out for them. You wouldn't believe me because that doesn't tell us anything. That's one. The second problem here is one thing about marriage that's useful for us is being able to track divorce. That's really easy because it all
Oh,
goes
we got
through a
lots of
state.
data on that. 'Cause
Yeah, we got
everybody
lots
does
of
it
data
manually.
on divorce and the statistics around it.
Yeah.
And the problem that you have here is that you're saying, well, men are getting destroyed because of how many of these, marriages end in divorce. But that's actually only true of some groups. Some groups, your risk of divorce is very, very small. It's very tiny. It's a tiny. It's well within what I would
Tell
consider.
me again, what is the difference in risk for divorce for people that are Christians versus
It
non-Christians?
depends on which type of Christian we're talking about. If you're
Yeah.
nominal Christian, you're on par with the national average. If you're devout Catholic or devout Orthodox, it's down to 12% to
Versus-
18% versus 40%.
12 versus 40.
That's a huge, like we're talking about now, well within acceptable risk. If
Yeah.
it's the case that 5 to 10% of people who ever have a drink are going to become alcoholics,
Right.
you wouldn't say that that's so much risk that you should never have a drink. Like that's within what I would consider acceptable barriers of risk. You're now part of an 80 to 90% of success rates rather than you only view it as 10 to 12% failure rate. I view it as an 80 to 90% success rate.
You still have way too many variables when it comes to marriage, even if you are a Christian, when it comes to the churches, the
What?
pastors that you're dealing with, who she is, as far as a woman before you marry her, the fact that women always reserve the right to change their mind at any given time about you later on down the road. I've seen many, many religious people get divorced and get absolutely cleaned out.
Sure, but why don't the numbers then reflect it within the individualistic
I don't
group?
know. I haven't collected the
Yep.
data, but I mean, you've
But I
also
just gave you the
polls at some
data.
of the data as well that I've talked about.
You can look at
You
the
also have
data.
scientists say that the Earth is warming when we all know that's not happening. It's
Yeah, but hang on. There's a big difference between people producing warming models, which are vastly hypothetical and predictive, versus gathering data which is established because we just have raw numbers of how many people are divorced within which category, which group.
I mean, the
So,
vast
do
majority
you
of
think we're
climate
gonna?
models, they try to point to statistics that are as accurate as possible, but
Well, I mean, we have accurate records of how many
Sure.
have been divorced, man. That's not hard to gather. That's not.
I'm going to stop it right there. I'm going to stop it right there. So this is what just listening to this part. What it sounds to me is his whole arguments through that whole section is the fact that he's willing to pay a woman. He's willing to pay for whatever she needs or whatever. Support every bit of her and the child as long as he's doing it on his own. I think his problem is he doesn't want to be forced to do it. He doesn't want, it comes down to force. That's what it boils down to. It comes down to I do not want to be made to do this. I want to do this on my own. And as far as like, if she can show, if you with a woman long enough, even if you're not married, if you can show that this person has been supporting you this long, she's going to get something. She's not just going to go empty-handed. She may not get the whole package, but she's getting something, bro. I'm just telling you. First of all, she's going to get the child support, and she's probably going to get something beyond that for a certain amount of time until she can get on her feet to support herself, because you have supported her instead of as a, you know what I'm saying? I mean, it all boils down to force. This guy does not want to be forced to do he doesn't want the state or whoever to make him do anything. He's willing to do it on his own. He just doesn't want to be forced to do it. Anyway, that's what I got out of that. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. Till next time, see ya.